blue block. Now the blue block has the actual pattern of a paragraph that is an extended paragraph. It starts with a topic sentence, it has 3 major points, and then it has a conclusion. Now if you'll look over at page 42, we actually show you how to write one. So on page 42, Tori Thorpe, who's a 11th grader this year, she's in Journey Through Time 12, she wrote this as an analysis of the short story by Ray Bradbury called All Summer in a Day. So you'll see her topic sentence, you'll see point 1, point 2, point 3. And she explains each one of her points with an additional sentence or 2. Then at the end, she has her conclusion. So if you will use your writing book, look over the map that we give you on the preceding page. It'll show you how to organize it. Then on the next page, we will generally give you an example. And we actually point out each one of the steps so that you can see how Tori went through the process of developing the topic sentence and each one of her examples. Now let me go ahead and pass out the assignment to you now. Okay, Marissa, I'm going to start passing out some over here so y'all can get on faster. Earlier, I like to go ahead and be very specific with assignment sheets so that you know exactly what to do before you walk out the room. So let's look over this assignment sheet on the extended paragraph. You are going to write a definition of the word epic. So what is a definition essay? A definition essay will share your special understanding about some idea or thing. Sometimes a definition will prove to be a small but important part of an essay. So when we practice this, it could be possible later that you will have to write a longer essay and include a definition in it. So you're going to learn how to do the definition part of a longer essay. Sometimes a definition will be the sole work of an entire essay. So you could actually have a research essay that tried to define an idea. A friend of mine who was from England, and she lived across the street from us when my boys were growing up, and we were her Texas friends who homeschooled, so we were weirdos. Okay. At the end of our relationship, they moved to Florida. They live in London today because she was a headmistress of the school, and they were Londoners. So she did a PhD at the University of Florida, and guess what her whole PhD was focused on? She asked the question, what is value in education? Well, y'all, one time I was doing Zoom typing with my boys, and they learned to touch type without even using a keyboard in 1 week by memorizing the keyboard. So you do it 5 times a day, 5 minutes each time, and you do it for 5 days. And you memorize the entire keyboard so you can touch type. She didn't believe me. So she borrowed it and took it to her school, Challenger Elementary in Pearland, where she taught. And she taught her whole 2nd grade class to type in 1 week, except for 2 boys who wouldn't behave. So it took them 2 weeks. Okay, story, y'all, she decided that what that homeschooler was doing, it worked. So she was really impressed. So when she does her doctorate, she travels all across the United States interviewing people about what is value in education. Guess what value in education was? Homeschooling. Y'all, this was a very liberal socialist. And for 14 years, she watched us homeschool. And we won her over. And then when she did her research, she defined that value in education today is homeschooling. So really cool. So y'all, she did an entire PhD dissertation on the value of homeschooling. And that was basically her definition essay. Okay? So I want you to realize you don't have to just write a little paragraph. It can be a whole big research project. You're not doing that. Okay, now the second part, the sole work of the essay, is what you are going to do. Now you have a list of 12 traits, correct? If you put each trait in a definition, so you can do something like this. An epic is a long narrative point that has 12 subtopics. And then you go, number 1, 2. That's an awful paper. Awful paper. Okay, so what could you do to the 12 characteristics to get them down to 3 is. You could just pick 3, couldn't you? That's a poor essay. Poor essay. You need to do them all. So how could you take all 12 and get them into 3 ideas, Raleigh?
You can kind of like do a general summarization of a group of ideas that
Okay. Excellent. You can categorize them. So try to figure out which of your topics you can categorize under this topic. And maybe pick out another subtopic of your choice. Categorize 4 or 5 more of them under that. So perfect. So you're going to have to create 3 categories. And these 3 categories, even though they have 12 different definition subtopics to them, each of those 3 categories will define what an epic is. Does everybody understand how to do that? So that would be an A paper. Now if you just want to take 3 of them and just say, oh, I can pick out these 3 and that defines an epic and give examples, that's a BC paper. So when you're an honor student, you want to elevate. And so you want to think outside of the box. So Ms. Duran gave me 12 definitions of an epic. I could choose 3. Nah, that's not what an honor student does. An honor student would try to get them all in. So you have to think like Raleigh. You have to think, okay, I've got to categorize the 3 sections and get them all 12 in, those 3 sections. And then that's much higher elevated thinking, and you got everything in. Could you actually, in your topic sentence, maybe throw 1 or 2 of your elements in there? Absolutely. The epic, comma, a long, see how you do that? Then you go on and finish the topic sentence, but you threw in one of the elements right there. So y'all learn to think real outside the box and try to get as much in, but be concise. How many sentences are you going to write? 10, 11, 12. So you got your work cut out for you. Can you use your Iliad? Can you use the Odyssey as examples? Absolutely. Because you've read them most, or at least read most of the Odyssey. Okay, now let's look at the sheet here. You may define an epic using any 3 of the traits, but a much stronger method. So everything I just said out loud, I wrote it on the sheet. So if your mom or dad would like to look at it, let them see this so they'll understand how you're writing the paper. Y'all, one of my students one time on a 5-paragraph essay, he had written about a planet. And when he turned the paper in, the last paragraph was about dinosaurs. And I said, what happened to your paper? And he said, my mother got a hold of it. So y'all, we want your moms and dads to proofread, but don't let them add dinosaurs to your paper, okay? And so if they don't understand what the assignment is, they may want to add the dinosaurs. So let them read the assignment so they understand what you're doing. Now here's your formula. Where did you see that just a minute ago? Come on, not hard. In your book, that's right. So this is exactly like Emily says, in your book. So this was your map, the blue box. Now, here's an example topic sentence. You may not use my example. One may define an epic as a long narrative poem, but upon further examination, the poem's organizational pattern, its hero and supernatural characteristics provide a deeper understanding of the meaning. Okay. Did it have any B verbs in it? No, got rid of them. Okay, now let's talk about B verbs for a couple of minutes. How many of you have never had to write without B verbs? Okay, a couple of you haven't. If you would, real quickly, look over at page 121, I think. Yep. What's that? 26. Okay, 126. We have a list of the no-no words. So this week I'm going to challenge you to have your book open to this page. Try not to use any of these dead words like stuff, or thing, or a lot. Try to be much more descriptive in your writing. Try to use words instead of like, use these words. Instead of very, use these words. Now the be verbs are mentioned at the bottom, so instead of be verbs, use words like appears, feels, smells, remains. I'm not going to really work on be verbs today because I would like to get a sample of your writing so that I can see where each one of you fall on the removal of be verbs. So try your best this week not to use those words, and we're going to work over the next several weeks about how to get rid of the be verbs. And some of you may be already masters at it, so super. Your job is easy. But those of you that are new, it takes a little practice not to write with be verbs. So don't get frustrated this week if you see some slipping in. After you finish writing your paragraph, then go back and circle them and see if you can get rid of them. If you have a sentence that you just can't figure out how to do it, copy the sentence, send it to me, and I'll show you how to do it. Okay? Raleigh, have you written without be verbs?
I was at the one.
The camp this summer, so you've already been introduced to it. But Joe, you took the camp too, so you were introduced to it. So I think the ones that are new probably have